All right, it's the 12 o'clock siren here at the Cowboy Corner in Leonard, Texas on the square, on the southeast side of the square. I've got James Hartley on my left.
Hello, everyone.
I've got Jason Fuller sitting across from me.
Thanks for having me.
And we are just wrapping up the Eugene Keggins interview last week. We had a good discussion with him, found out some new things about him.
Absolutely. One, would like to thank him for coming out. It was a great conversation about what Leonard's been like the last 50 years that he's been in business here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks to Eugene for being our first guest, and a great one.
Big thanks, yes, and couldn't have asked for a better first guest. He's certainly brought a lot to the table, to the town, and to the community, so we really appreciate having him here. Second up, we have our second interview, a man that I've known for probably 30 years here in Celeste. He is a graduate of Celeste High School. He was born in 1938. Now, I was doing the math on that. Actually, James did the math on that, and that is...
Quick math. 81?
81 years old. Mr. Gene Martin. I didn't turn his microphone on, but here we go, Mr. Gene Martin.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, y'all.
So, 81 years in Fannin County, or Hunt County?
That's correct. Now, I haven't lived here all of my life. I moved to Colorado for part of my life.
Colorado has my heart.
And I moved to Sherman first, and I worked at IBM in Sherman. And, of course, you know what IBM stands for? I've been moved.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, they're still doing it. IBM's still doing it. I'm in the technology world myself, and we sell against IBM. So.
And then they transferred me to Colorado, to Boulder, Colorado. So
it's a lovely town.
It is.
So my family go up to southwest Colorado, up around Durango, Pagosa Springs. We go up there every year for vacation. I would love to move there. Yeah.
Well, I lived there but nearly 20 years, and when I retired, I felt like I needed to move back here. My parents were still alive, and I felt like I needed to help take care of them, and I did till they both died. So I don't regret it. We loved Colorado.
Sure.
I lived in a town called Longmont, Colorado.
Yes, sir.
And the winters are a little bit harsh up there, but the summers are nice.
Well, yes, they say if you come for the winter, you stay for the summer.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
And now, you were a graduate of Celeste High School?
That's correct.
All right, and judging by your height, which you can't obviously see that here, I would assume you were quite the threat on the basketball court, maybe football?
I've got the white man's disease. I can't jump.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
How about your football game?
I can empathize.
Well, yeah. I played. Of course, when you go to a school the size of Celeste, you play all the sports, or you get run out of town.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you guys have some a long history with Leonard back in the day?
Well, yeah, we had a little.
Did you have to sneak in?
Yeah. Didn't come in after dark.
Yeah, right.
When I asked Gene to do this interview, the first thing he says is, "I'm not sure if they're going to let me into Leonard." So,
but that's all resolved, I think.
So
we don't hold grudges here.
Just small town rivalry.
Sure. Yeah. How tall are you?
5'18".
5'18". So I'm going to do the math on that. That is 6'6".
That's correct.
Okay, 6'6". And part of the reason of your height is because you descend from some pretty tall folks.
That's correct.
Can you fill us in on that?
Well, my great grandfather was one of the Texas Giants. Worked at times with Ringling Brothers Circus. There was 4 brothers, 7'8", 7'10", 7'11", 7'11" 3/4, and my great grandfather was 7'11" 3/4.
Wow. So you said the Ringling Circus, Barnum Bailey, from what I read.
Well, that maybe it was. Yeah, one of the circuses.
Barnum Bailey found these guys.
Yeah.
And they were all, from what I understand, in Wolf City, Greenville, Hunt County area.
That's correct. Yeah.
What were they doing before this? Were they just farmers working on the farm and got picked up by Mr. Barnum Bailey himself?
Yeah.
That's insane. So the circus circuit back then must have been quite the improvement in life.
Well, there wasn't any televisions back then, and so they were pretty popular.
Yeah. I can imagine. I'm sitting here looking at these photos. They were. It looks like they're dressed up in military clothes of the time. Maybe. Are you familiar with their garb there?
I don't think it's military garb. I think it's circus garb.
Is it really? Okay. Not to belittle military garb. Sorry about that.
They were too tall for military. So.
Right. Gotcha. We've got a framed photo of the 4 guys here, the 4 Texas Giants, the Shields brothers. Back a few years ago, I've seen a few websites have shared their story, and it kind of went viral on the internet. Just these guys from Celeste that were taller than your average man and made this circus loop. It's a pretty fascinating story.
Their parents were of normal size.
Really?
And they had some other siblings that were of normal size.
I saw they had a bunch of brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
They just kind of won the genetic lottery then.
I guess, yeah.
Wow.
Well, I would imagine, right, like you said they were farming and ranching prior to. That was probably kind of an improvement on their life to go in the circus when you, I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. It was probably a lot more money than picking cotton.
Right.
They weren't really built for cotton pickers, you know.
Ooh.
Yeah,
No,
that'd be back breaking, hip breaking, and knee breaking. I would assume at that height.
Yeah.
I think I saw $100 a week, maybe, or something was what they were making.
I think I saw that same thing.
Pretty good money, I
and
would assume. And this
and-
is late to 1800s.
And room and
I
board.
believe.
And room and board also.
Right. Right. A couple stories I read mentioned train rides and trips around America, which back then was a luxury.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like world travel, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the world was a lot bigger place than it is now.
That's true.
So,
Do you know what happened to them after that? Or did they just run the circuit and
Well, two of them went into business in Greenville, and it was a bar. And it really, in those days, you're not thinking about a bar like you think about a bar today, more like a grocery store or
Sure.
something like that. Yeah. Now, my great grandfather was one of the two that did that, and then one of them moved to Missouri. The youngest one moved to Missouri and lived up there, and he married a giantess, and he was the mayor of that city up there at one time.
wow.
Yeah. So,
very cool? Yeah, I was actually reading about that too.
yeah.
Is that Jason?
Oh, I was just saying, wow, that's really interesting lives. Could you speak to what their act may have been like in the circus? Were they just looked upon like the strong man? Or
That's all I know about them. Just looked at it, and they had some smaller people that they stood beside them and
Compare them to.
compared them to. So,
Wow.
I don't think they had any act of any kind. So,
Now, what about your parents? Were they tall like yourself?
no, my dad is about 6'3". Now I've got two boys. One of them 6'6", same height as me, and the other one's about 6'3", 6'4". And then I got a daughter that's just kind of about 5'4", or something like that.
I was going to say might skip a generation, but then it sounds like they've got some height as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Wow.
So you said you were born in 1938. I'd be kind of curious if you could take us through your life and kind of, living with those I almost said ancestors, but just family members, and then having that heritage, and then coming up through and kind of where you are now.
Well, I was born in 38, went to school in Celeste, graduated in 1956. Now, Celeste had the high school burned during the Christmas holidays of 1955. So we had to have some schooling in some other buildings. But it was a good, close-knit town, and everybody worked well together, and we had some really good sports teams, basketball and football and baseball as far as that goes. So, yeah. So,
what do you remember most about when you were a kid in grade school? Just, what was life like in the 1940s?
picking cotton.
Picking cotton. Cotton was king,
As far as you can see.
Cotton was king. Yeah.
Right.
We lived on a farm that had 120 acres, and 100 acres of it was in cotton, and it was right out the south edge of town. And in the fall of the year, well, we actually had summer school during the hot part of the summer, and then turned out about the 1st of September to pick
go to
cotton.
work.
Yeah,
Uh,
It's a little late break and actually work, really, huh?
yeah. And we didn't have any air conditioning in the schools in those days.
Oof.
Had 2 gyms in Celeste, and both those gyms run 24 hours a day.
Well, I bet.
Yep. So,
What's the downtown Celeste look like back then?
not like it does now.
Does it?
Except that a lot of the stores were open back then.
Sure. What are you going to? What stores are up there in the 40s?
Bickham's grocery store.
Okay.
There was 3 grocery stores Compton's grocery store, and had a drugstore. In fact, Eugene's predecessor.
Okay.
No, predecessor.
Mr. Giles?
No.
Gall.
Oh, yep, that's right. That's right.
Galden.
Giles was next door.
Galden.
Yes.
Galden, yep.
That's
Yeah,
it.
Joe Galden. Yeah, had a drugstore up there, and they had a couple of cafes
Wow.
and a couple of service stations, and it was pretty active up there.
Well, population-wise, was it bigger than it is now, or?
Well, we're right now on a pretty much growth pattern.
Sure.
And when I graduated in '56, the population was 722. It's now up to 815.
All right. Explosive growth there.
But a lot of people are moving in from the metroplex and moving into the country
Yep.
to get away from the crime and the
Yep.
congestion stuff
Congestion.
like that.
Ugh.
So it's bigger than what it was, but the town itself has not grown much. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, we were one of those in the '90s. We came in from not Dallas necessarily, but definitely moved out to the outskirts.
I remember it well. I'll tell you a little story on his
Oh,
dad.
I'd like to hear that.
Uh-oh.
I was out at their place baling hay. After I retired, I started in the cattle business and the hay business, and I was baling their hay. You was about this tall, I think. And of course, his dad was an airline pilot,
Yes, sir.
and I was fixing to bale that hay. And boy, his dad wanted to be out there so bad he couldn't hardly stand it. He said, I've got a flight. And he said, I think I'll just call in and get somebody else to fly it. I said, Greg, let me give you a little bit of advice. You can make a lot more money flying that plane than you can baling this hay.
Absolutely.
And he agreed with that, so he went ahead and flew his plane.
Yeah, it was, between Quick Check probably and baling our hay, that was probably how we met.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I know my mom and dad would frequent the Quick Check in Celeste and get their coffee and talk with the guys up there chatting all the time.
Yeah.
I remember we would get our hay baled. At that time we never had a farm, so coming back to getting the hay baled, I remember coming home from Greenville or something, and we were all guessing how many bales of hay there'd be out there. 85, 55. We're all.
Well, that back then it was all square bales. It didn't have the round bales much. So
Thank goodness for the round bales.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wound up baling round bales also. So
You said that's what you did in your retirement.
yeah.
So the retirement's work,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but it's fun work.
Well, I built. First thing I did is built a house.
Yep.
And I inherited some land and built a house, and I was young. I was 55 years old, and so I decided I'd buy me 5 cows, and I bought 5 cows. They were all bred. First thing you know, I had 5 cows and 5 calves.
Nice.
Well, I needed to rebreed the cows, so I bought a bull.
Oh, that's how it starts.
So yeah, so anyway, I kind of grew from there, and it wound up for several years. I had 15 cows, and I'd have calves, and 14 or 15 calves and a bull, and I did that till I actually retired. Then I started baling hay, and I started out baling square bales of hay, and then I decided I needed to have a tractor and a hay baler and a rake and a cutter, and then I found that feeding round bales of hay was so much easier than square bales. I bought a round baler.
Definitely easier to move too.
Yeah, so I had 3 tractors and 2 balers and a cutter and a rake, and that's kind of how that all progressed. And I wound up with about 500 acres of land leased that scattered around Celeste.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Did you when you had those acres leased, did you run cattle on them too, or did you just bale the hay?
I run cattle on most of it. I did bale some of it, but most of it was cattle.
Oh, okay. Do you still have cattle?
No.
Got rid of them, huh?
When'd you hang your hat up?
Do what?
When'd you hang your cattle hat up?
When I started RVing.
Gotcha. There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't raise cattle and spend the summer in Colorado. You know?
I think I recall seeing an RV with your truck headed west a couple times.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Back to Colorado?
Well, we got 2 kids in Colorado Springs.
Perfect.
So we'd spend the summers up there, and maybe the last time we went up there, we spent 3.5 months.
Oh, man,
Yeah, so it was good. But you get a little old for that, just where it's not as attractive as it is when you're younger. So
Sure.
So.
My dad's been a farmer rancher all his life, and I grew up tired of pinning cattle, probably like you were tired of picking cotton. And
Yeah.
but it's funny how things kind of come full circle. I'm 35 years old, and we're going to cow sales and looking at cattle, and I want to buy some. And he's shrank his herd, and he's kind of talking to me, saying, let's not. You probably don't want to do that. It's a rough time to be in the cattle business right now.
Yeah. Well, I also got involved in some of the stuff around Greenville and Celeste. We organized a Lions Club. Your dad was in that Lions Club, and I was president of that Lions Club for a few years. And then I got involved with the Cotton Museum down in Greenville.
Yep.
And we built a new building down there, and I happened to be on the committee that helped build that building. I was a buyer by trade with IBM, so I helped negotiate all the building material for that. And and we'll get into the Murphy family a little bit later on, but I'll tell you just a little bit about it. The Murphy family come to us, and I was president of that board, the Cotton Museum board, wanted to incorporate the Cotton Museum with the Audie Murphy paraphernalia.
Yeah.
It was being displayed in the library down there, and they didn't have room for it or the staff for it. But the family did not want the public to have to charge for seeing the Murphy stuff, and I could understand that.
Sure.
But we couldn't do that because we had to charge a fee to
Cover
maintain
costs.
it. Yeah. Anyway, after I left the Cotton Museum boards, they got it all together, and I don't know how they all come together, but it's now, and if y'all have not been to the Audie Murphy Cotton Museum, you need to go.
We will.
It's really,
Might have to make a field trip.
Yeah.
it's really a good deal. They got one room completely designated for the Murphy family. Of course, they got the statue out front.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that y'all had some ties there because your family's so tall, and he was not a large man.
No,
Right.
small, quiet man.
Absolutely. And I think the Marines wouldn't take him, so that's when he went, and the Airborne wouldn't take him, and then he ended up with just a line infantry unit.
Yeah, and he was too young for that, really.
Right.
Yeah, I read it. Him and his sister helped forge his documents so he could enlist with the Army.
Yeah. At one time, when we still lived on the farm, my grandmother and grandfather lived just across the highway and the railroad track from us, just 100 yards south of us. And the Murphy family lived in an old abandoned boxcar that was on the property. You may not know about this. I don't know.
I've heard stories.
And the father abandoned them.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was small, everybody called him, his dad's name was Pat, and everybody called him Little Pat. Boy, he didn't like that at all.
not.
Yeah, didn't like that at all. But anyway, they moved out of there. My dad helped them move out of there. They had all them, the mother and all the kids lived in that boxcar and had their chickens in one end of it.
Goodness.
And
Times were hard, huh?
It was pretty bad.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Do you remember how many kids?
No, I don't. I sure don't.
But a pile of them, huh?
A pretty good pile of them, yeah.
So Celeste was basically his foundation as a child, and I've also read he went to Farmersville, lived there for a while, as well as maybe Greenville, Kingston.
He was born and raised, if you know where the electric company is down there, Encore.
Off 69?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was born and raised, or he was born right behind there.
Okay.
And there's a marker down there, as a matter of fact, historical marker down there. So.
Yep.
But then they moved around quite a bit, and he got a sister that lived in Farmersville. Farmersville tried to claim him, I think, but he actually signed up for the military out of Greenville.
Okay.
Yep. So. He was a tough little guy.
I bet. Did he go to school in Celeste, or were they?
What schooling he had, it was in Celeste.
Yeah. Okay.
Him and my uncle ran around together all the time, and they were pretty mean little kids.
Yeah. Yeah. There was probably no restrictions or anything. It's just do what you want, kind of.
Well, there's a funny little story. You may not. I don't know whether you want to record this or not, but
Let's go for it.
After they kind of left, we were still on the farm, and we were picking cotton that fall, and there was a young black man that was helping us pick cotton, and he got telling us he lived on further out of town than where Barber John lived. Barber John had a son that ran around with him also, and if they were at the barber's house, if he tried to come to town, this black man tried to come to town, he had to crawl through the ditch because they'd shoot at him.
Oh, my goodness.
Jeez.
Now, they didn't shoot at him to hurt him. They shoot at him to make him dance.
Oh, wow.
That was
Just
Audie
kinda-
Murphy, huh?
That was Audie Murphy.
As
yeah.
a 6-year-old or something.
Goodness.
Goodness.
Wild man.
And they didn't spend much time in school. So
No.
Yeah. Huh.
now this is back before television, when they had Audie on This Is Your Life on the radio,
Yep.
they flew my uncle to California to be on that show, and it's back before television. So
Wow.
yeah, so,
Yeah, he got into Hollywood, I guess, after his military career.
yeah. Well, he wrote the book. He wrote
Yep.
a book, and that kind of set him off, you know.
Yeah.
So.
To Hell and Back, I think
Yeah.
it was called.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I read that.
And then he made quite a few movies, but he was a small, quiet man. You wouldn't think he would be aggressive at all.
Well, he set France on fire when he
Yeah.
was over there fighting the Germans.
I bet they don't think he was a small, quiet man.
No.
No.
But another story about Audie, he used to come back to Celeste to visit with Barbara's wife and my mother and my aunt and all of us and my grandmother. And he was driving a Cadillac. It may have been a Cadillac convertible, I'm not sure. He stopped and picked up a hitchhiker. And this hitchhiker decided that he was going to steal his car. So his hitchhiker told Audie, he said he had a gun in his pocket, and he wanted his car. Well, Audie, being familiar enough with guns, asked him what kind of gun it was, and he told him some kind of gun. Well, Audie knew how to disarm that gun. We'll come find out that he didn't even have a gun.
Oh, man, talk about
Called
picking
his
the
bluff.
wrong car to
Picked-
steal.
Picked the wrong guy, yeah.
Yeah, to pick Audie Murphy.
And then one time, my grandmother and granddad just kind of helped raise him, and I saw all of his medals one time laying on my grandmother's bed.
Wow.
I mean, they had the bed completely covered. Yeah, so
That's wild.
yeah,
I found it interesting reading his book. He talked about how when they were fighting their way across France or Italy or whatever, they would have people come and put on uniforms that were a part of that country, but they would just kind of fall in line so they could eat. And they'd end up fighting with the American forces just really for food. They didn't get paid or anything. They weren't Americans, but they were wearing American uniforms, and I thought that was interesting.
Well, Audie didn't have a lot of fear. I mean, he
No, I
I
didn't.
didn't think so. I was actually in Pigeon Forge recently and found out that his plane went down just north of Pigeon Forge in Virginia.
yeah, that's true.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And we live on the Audie Murphy Highway in Celeste, and
Yeah,
and we just happened to be 30 miles down the road from where his plane went down,
yeah.
which is news to me.
Well, yeah, and there's kind of some weirdness there, right? Like he was kind of in debt, had some gambling debt, some IRS troubles.
He made
Yeah.
some really bad investments with some of his money
Yeah.
in oil, I think, overseas oil,
Mhm.
I think, and that's what kind of broke him, I think. So
Yeah.
Right.
He, gambling and horses. I believe he raced horses in
Yeah.
California.
yeah, I think so.
That was what he got into, and probably in that Hollywood crowd, I guess you might change your sights a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine that the IRS would go after you though, after what
War hero.
what he's
That is
what
right.
he's capable of and what he accomplished. My
yeah,
lord,
yeah.
it seems criminal. But
Well, I would certainly advise you guys to go down to the Audie Murphy Cotton Museum
Absolutely.
down on the access road of Interstate 30, if you know where that's at.
Yes, sir.
okay, so Dad was saying that you were instrumental in bringing the Lions Club back to Celeste.
Well, back when I was away from Celeste, my dad was involved with the Lions Club, and when I moved back to Celeste, one of my highlights was I was wanting to join the Lions Club. Well, they had disbanded, and I was kind of heartbroken over that. So I started trying to get it reorganized, and I actually got it reorganized, sitting right there at the Quick Check.
Oh wow.
And they wouldn't renew it. They had to file a new charter. So and your dad and several others in there was pretty instrumental in that. So
Well, and for the younger people listening, can you describe the Lions Club? They might not know what
Yeah.
it is.
I was actually going to say I'm familiar with like the Masons and the Odd Fellows and stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm
Sure.
kind of ignorant.
well, one of the things they do is provide glasses for a lot of underprivileged people.
Okay.
In fact, we collected glasses, old glasses that people had discarded or for whatever reason, and we had deal set up at the bank, and first one place another for people to turn their old glasses in, because what do you do with them if you're not using them anymore?
Sure.
And of course, Lions Club still does that, but Celeste Lions Club just disbanded it. Didn't. But we made wheelchair ramps for invalids, and we cleaned up properties, and we picked up trash on the highways, and
So it was a fraternal order with a charitable bend.
yeah. I know when I was trying to recruit some new members, one of the guys, and I'll never will forget this, told me, he said, if you're going to meet, eat, and go home, I don't want to be a part of it.
Right.
But if you're going to do some things, I will. And I recruited him, and he did, and he was a pretty active part of it. So.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, is getting people to do things.
Yeah.
It's easy to show up at meetings, but then you got to act on it. That's
Right.
kind of what we're doing with this podcast too. We've all got a little job to do here and there to get this or that done, and it's all about doing it.
Yeah.
Well, the bad part about it is we got furniture all scattered all up and down the Audie Murphy Highway between here and Greenville, you know.
On the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's just south of my house down there, matter of fact.
Yeah, I know exactly which couch you're talking about. Funny story, bringing that up. My dad has a habit of taking pictures on discarded couches. And that one, I know which one you're talking about. We might just go take that one ourselves.
We might have to do that.
But what he does is, around the world, wherever he's on a trip, or you know, the country, if he finds a couch or a chair discarded, he'll take a picture on it as.
Well, he needs to take a picture of that one.
Yeah, I think he's already got it.
Then go throw it away.
I think he's already captured it. Now we're gonna have to throw it away. We're gonna have to go pick it up. It's been bothering me too.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
So after you graduated in '56, what then?
I went to work in Greenville for a parts house, automotive parts house.
Yes, sir.
Well, I first went to Dallas and working under construction, and I was never a Dallas person. I just didn't like Dallas.
Sure.
And I was working on the Dallas-Fort Worth Turnpike.
Oh, goodness.
I was down in a 20-foot ditch driving T-post,
Oh.
driving stakes, and I got burned out, and I come home for a day or two, and my mom thought I was moving back, so I just did.
Don't want to disappoint her.
Took the invite.
And then I went to work for a parts house in Greenville, and that was a pretty good job. I liked that. I was a delivery boy, and there were just two people, and so a lot of times I would run the store. And in 1961, we had same company had a store in Sherman, and they asked me to go run the store in Sherman, and that's what I did. I managed that store in Sherman until 1965, and I liked it real well, but it didn't pay much. There wasn't any benefits with it, you know.
Sure.
It had long hours and not much benefits. But I really did like it, like the mechanics and stuff like that I worked with. But a guy invited me to interview at IBM in Sherman, and I did, and they hired me. And of course, the pay was a lot better, and the benefits were really a lot better.
Sure.
I worked up there till '76. They closed that Sherman plant down, and they had a program where that you could transfer to other locations. And you picked what locations. Had 3 locations you could pick, and you picked one, and if they had an opening in that particular location, that's where they transferred you to. So they was, I think, about 30 of the employees transferred to Boulder, Colorado, and I was in the what I'm trying to say.
Procurement?
Well, I was in procurement at the last. I was a buyer for probably 10 years.
Gotcha.
And I worked in world trade.
Oh, okay.
The last few years, I bought U.S. manufactured product and shipped to our plants overseas, our
Gotcha.
IBM plants overseas. Yeah,
So when you started working at IBM, and that was in 61 or 62?
65.
65. That was probably right at the tail end of the Ross Perot era. He sold for IBM for a while.
That's exactly right. He did.
I worked for Mr. Perot for a while.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. Was sad to hear of his passing not too long ago.
Yeah.
He was a good man.
Well, the story I heard that he would meet his quota just real quick, and then he didn't have nothing to do. So he got bored when he had business for himself. So
Yeah, I think he told a story when I was working there that one year he hit his quota in like January 4th
Yeah.
or something. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
I'm in sales, and I haven't done that yet.
Well, when I moved to Colorado, we were building copiers.
Yes, sir.
And the copiers back that we were building were as long as this room here. And now one sitting on the desk will do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting time in technology for sure.
Yep, sure has.
So you said when you moved to Colorado, when you got to choose which location you went, you said 30 or so men that you knew also moved there. Did that make the move easier for you? An easier choice since you were going with some
Not particularly.
not particular. You were going to go regardless.
It was in my I qualified for it.
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to do, and they had some openings for it. The 30 people transferred up there was all scattered all over the plant.
Ah.
That wasn't all of them in
I see.
procurement. So.
But you'd have gone even if you were the only one anyway.
Oh
huh?
yeah. That's I sat down with the family, and that's what we decided we wanted to do. So that's where we wanted to go. Most of our employees went to Austin.
Sure.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And of course, as long as I was in Colorado, I had this Southern accent, Texas accent, and I'd buy parts from somewhere in Michigan or somewhere back east. They'd try to send my parts to Austin.
So you lived in Boulder then, or Longmont,
Longmont,
for 20 years?
well, 19 years.
19
What,
years.
19 years. Yeah, 19 years. We lived. The plant was about halfway between Boulder and Longmont, sitting out in the country, and so we had about a 5 or 6 mile trip to the plant and back. So
Oh, wow.
Longmont was a lot more conservative than Boulder was.
Sure.
It is to this
Probably,
day, I'm
probably
sure.
still
Probably
is.
still
I'm
so.
sure it is. Yeah.
Yeah, Boulder and Denver's kind of like Austin and Dallas for
When we moved
Texas.
to Longmont, Longmont was about the same size as what Greenville is,
okay.
but now it's exploded. It's gone up. It's probably 125, 30,000 people. I don't know. So.
Mm.
Yeah.
Jeez. So during that time, were there anything? What was it like adjusting to the winters? I mean, did you just try to stay busy? Did you hunt? Did you?
Oh,
Did
I
not
hunted-
pick
I-
cotton.
I hunted.
You did
yeah.
not pick up.
I hunted before we moved to Colorado,
Oh, sure.
and then after we moved up there, well, of course, that was a kind of a good outlet for me. One of the things I did that I was kind of proud of, the tallest peak in the northern range of the Rockies, which sits in Rocky Mountain National Park, which is Long's Peak.
Yes, sir.
It's 14,255 feet. I climbed that one time.
And that's a dangerous one too. People die on it.
Well, yeah. And in fact, I hauled a young college girl off of there that had hurt herself
Oh goodness.
Oh, wow.
on my piggyback, called it on piggyback. So,
Well, I heard, and I don't know if it was true back then, but I heard now that everybody buys a fishing license in Colorado because you get one free helicopter ride out of the backcountry. If
I hadn't heard that.
yeah,
That's good to know.
That is good to know. So if you're going hiking in Colorado, buy
That's
you know,
worth it,
a
yeah.
fishing
Yeah,
license.
yeah.
So.
Jeez.
What did you hunt while you were up there? Did you ever get any elk?
I hunted elk and deer.
Mule deer.
Yeah, mule
Yeah.
deer. I hunted whitetail deer in Texas
Yes,
before I moved up there. But once you go up there and you're in elk country,
It's
deer
kind of hard to
just-
come back.
Deer just don't look the same to you.
Did they have? I grew up quail hunting. Did they have game birds up there?
Had pheasant.
Pheasant.
Yeah.
That's it.
Going back to the Shield Giants, there is a historical marker in Kingston for them. Is
That's
that correct?
correct, yeah.
I saw it
Yeah.
on the internet and was wondering if I hadn't actually seen it myself.
Yeah, it's
But for anybody interested in the Shields Giants, there's a historical marker there.
I happened to be there when they dedicated that.
Nice, yeah. So we got the Audie Murphy historical marker in town.
No, they've got a memorial thing in Celeste.
The memorial, yeah.
But they've got a historical marker down pretty close to the electric company down there.
Okay.
That's where was his birthplace.
Okay. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
One of the guys' names is Shade,
He was a young one.
which makes a lot of sense when you're checking in at 7'8".
8, yeah.
Provide
Jeez.
some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shadrick, I think, may have been his name.
Yeah,
Perfectly
Yeah.
shortened to Shade.
yeah.
And he was the one that moved to Missouri, you said.
That's
right?
correct, yeah.
So when they were doing the Barnum Bailey stuff, that was in the late 1800s.
That's correct, yeah.
When did Shade pass away? Was he the last one to
He
pass
was the
away?
last one, and it was in the 30s.
In the 30s.
I
So
don't
not
know
too-
the exact. I don't know the exact date. You may know
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember off, but it was in the 30s.
So you just barely missed them then, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Well, the others died in the 1800s. So
Really?
And that's a full life. They've died early or anything. I mean,
Natural causes,
lifespan wasn't as long maybe back then.
well, I'm sure it wasn't. Yeah, yeah. So.
And,
We'll have to delve into
yeah, we'll have to get more into that. I've always been fascinated by the story of the Texas Giants, and as long as I've known you, my parents told me, I'd heard the story from you, and I always thought it was a really cool one.
I'll tell you a funny little story. You was asking me how tall I was, and I told you 5'18". Well, one day at church, after church, there was a family there that had two young boys that were 10 or 12 years old, and we got out of the church and was in the foyer, and one of them walked up to me and said, "Mr. Martin, how tall are you?" I said, "I'm 5'18". He took about 3 steps back, looked up at me, and he said, "You're 6'6", aren't you?"
Yeah.
I said, "I'm impressed."
Yeah, you caught me off guard there. I had to do a little math off the top of my head, and I wasn't prepared for it.
Been a while.
He was.
Yeah.
Where did you go to church?
Celeste.
At the
Baptist Church.
At the Baptist Church
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Well, we've got a thing we do at the end of our show, and we're probably about ready to wrap it up. We've got 5 questions in that jar right there, which James's wife so lovingly made. And Jason's
My wife.
Jason's wife lovingly made a decal for us and got it all taken care of. They're just random questions that not hard to answer. Yes, no.
Don't have to
probably
answer
quick
them if you
questions. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. But
I'll try.
should be something fun. We'll do 5 of them with you here, and
Okay.
I'll try to read Matthew's handwriting here.
Yeah.
If you could tell me one thing that you thought was cool when you were younger that's not as cool today.
Running.
Running?
running.
I used to run a lot. In fact, I still walk a lot. I walk 1.5 miles every day.
Goodness.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in the church gym. So,
Okay.
but I've always done that. But I used to run. In fact, I used to ride a bicycle and run from Celeste to Leonard and back. So,
Wow. That's not so cool today.
No. So here's one. This will be an interesting one coming from somebody who's not from Leonard. What is your first memory of Leonard?
well, we played a football game.
I was going to say, if you say beating us in football, we'll be upset.
We played a football game one night, and it was in Leonard, and it was on a Friday night, and and it rained. It rained us out, and they didn't call us and tell us it was canceled till we was already there. Well, we had already suited out, and got up there, and it had rained it out, so we rescheduled it for Saturday night.
Oh,
And so we went back on Saturday night. Well, back those days, the Blackland field was pretty muddy.
yes, sir.
And I was one of the co-captains on the football team, and I run over a referee right out and stepped right out in front of me, and I accidentally I rolled him up, boy, his white suit. He come up blowing his whistle. I said, "What's the penalty?" He said, "Clipping." I said, "Who clipped?" He said, "I don't know. I was on the ground." And I kind of got a little upset, and the coach took me out right quick. Let me cool off a little bit.
Were you going to pop off a little bit? Okay, so favorite movie?
I'm just not a movie person. My wife and I, neither one.
Really?
The last movie we went to,
Oh, that's probably a better question right there.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton, 9 to 5.
Oh,
Goodness.
Y'all aren't movie people.
Mid to late 80s.
was
I think.
that on the square in Leonard?
No, that was actually in Woodland Park, Colorado.
Okay.
we got caught in a snowstorm, and we had to spend the night in our RV up there, and there was a movie theater right across the street from us, and so
It just worked out.
we're just not movie.
That's
people.
funny.
Yeah.
All right, we got an interesting one here. If you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, who would that be? Anybody you'd like to just ask a question to, or
Famous family.
anyone at all?
he looked at
Audie
his
Murphy,
wife.
maybe.
Oh yeah.
Audie Murphy might be a good lunch mate.
Yeah.
Go with Audie Murphy on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good conversation.
Yeah.
Was that 4? One more?
So I have a question. I didn't draw it from the thing though,
Yeah.
but being an RVer, what's the most interesting place y'all been in your RV, or the funnest, or?
Oh, probably Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Really?
Was Dollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Was probably one of them. The coast. I can just name a bunch of them.
Sure.
We spent a lot of time down in South Texas on the coast.
Sure.
Port Aransas.
Oh yeah, I love
one of our
Port
favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But we spent most of our time in Fun Valley, Colorado. That's out at Rock.
Estes Park?
No,
Is it near there? No.
Rock. Well,
Fun Valley.
Fun Valley. Yeah,
We'll Google that later.
Yeah, we will.
Have you ever been up into Idaho?
just a little bit, not very much.
Love
Never
that state,
done
too.
much RVing up there or anything.
Gotcha. Well, that's all I have.
I think that's about it. I thank you very much, Gene, for coming in here and talking to us about your family and time and everything. You still driving that gray Dodge truck?
Yeah.
If you happen
he
to,
bought that when they went and saw 9 to 5.
that might be true. That might be true. I was gonna say if you work in Greenville and drive by the Celeste Quick Check, most likely you've probably seen that truck parked up there.
I've got to where I don't drive it.
You don't drive it?
No.
What are you driving now?
I'm driving a Jeep Cherokee
Okay.
Latitude. It's a whole lot more economical on fuel.
I got you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if you see that Jeep Cherokee or Dodge truck parked up there at Quick Check, swing on by and say hi to Gene. He'll
Yeah.
probably be sitting there drinking some coffee.
I'm only up there twice a day.
Oh.
Morning
Well,
and
that's
afternoon.
actually how I got your contact info. I
Yeah.
talked to Leona up there, and
Leona asked me this morning. She said, "Did Matthew call you?" I said, "Yeah."
yeah, I figured Leona knows everything up there, so I figured
Leona's
she'd be
good.
the
She's a good lady.
yeah, she is.
Good hand.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate your time.
I want to add one thing here.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
His mom and dad are two great people.
We know that.
they are.
His mom, I don't know whether she's still doing any nursing or not, but when my wife was in the hospital, she took good care of her.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you for
Yeah, she
sure.
told me she took care of your dad.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Oh,
That's what kind of intrigued me is, and she knows a lot about you guys just from that.
Yeah.
So I'd heard these old stories and kind of wanted to
Yeah.
kind of pick
Yeah.
your brain and have
They're
you
good.
tell some stories.
They're good people. I don't know how he turned out like he was.
Yeah. I know
it's
it.
it's a
I know
shame,
it.
isn't it?
no, he's a good guy.
He is. We just like to make fun of him
Sure,
sometimes.
I'm that guy.
We do love the Harveys. They straddle the line between Celeste and Leonard. And
Yeah.
we let them come and go.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
both cities claim them.
That's why I had to get a Celeste citizen to get in here and
Yeah, we've had one Leonard and now one Celeste area.
even the
so-
playing
Well,
field.
you actually went to school at Leonard, though,
I went to
didn't
Leonard. Yeah. We knew more people, I guess, in Leonard when we moved out here and just kind of acclimated to
Yeah.
Leonard for whatever reason.
you? Yeah.
But obviously, I spent a lot of time in Celeste at the Quick Check and know everybody that lives there almost. So
Oh, yeah.
it's cool knowing.
You
a lot of
probably know
people
more
about-
people there now than I do. I don't know. I don't know this younger generation.
Yeah, it's turning over. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
It's growing. We talked about that last week when we were interviewing Eugene, and how now I go to the grocery store and I don't know anybody, and
Yeah.
I graduated from here and lived
We
here
go
long.
to, we go to the football game. But they had a senior adult football sports banquet last Friday night, and of course I didn't know hardly anybody there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. On the other hand, I've been to Spring Market and seen 4 Brandons that I knew.
we come
So that can happen sometimes too.
Yeah.
we come to Leonard the other day to do something other, and stopped at the Dairy Queen to eat lunch,
Mm.
and went in there, and there was 3 couples in there. We didn't know them. Well, we knew who they were. 3 couples in there eating. That's all they were. All 3 of us from Celeste.
Well, we appreciate y'all spending your money in our wonderful town.
Why
here.
don't we have a
Yeah,
Dairy
y'all are
Queen?
due for a Dairy Queen. It sounds like.
Well, thanks again. We really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we'll love to have you back on.
All right.
We,
well, listen,
we do appreciate you, Gene.
I appreciate you guys, and take good care of this guy now. He's okay.
We'll do it.
Well, thank you very much, guys. We'll be back next week with another one. Thank you.
That's it.